that on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state, the people whereof thenceforward and forever free, and the executive government of the United States will recognize such persons as being free, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom.
After the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863, hundreds of thousands of newly freed African Americans had no place to go. Many of them remained on plantations in the South.
So it was a system, it was another system that was created right out after the emancipation. A lot of planters and farmers in the South had to find a way to keep people enslaved, because you talk about planters who knew nothing but planting. Who's going to work these thousands of acres of land?
A contract was created between the former slaves and plantation owners called the Freedman Contract. The sharecropper worked the planter's land, giving him 1/3 or more of the harvested crop. The sharecropper was required to purchase tools, seed, fertilizer, food, and clothing on credit at plantation stores. The rest of the crop was usually sold back to the plantation owners at whatever price they would pay.
A lot of the people couldn't buy their seeds, their clothing from any other store but the plantation store. So in most cases, the owner himself owned the store. You're not leaving my farm until you pay me what you owe me in voluntary servitude. I didn't volunteer to work here. I'm forced by gunpoint. I'm forced by laws. There's no way out for me.
I was held enslaved in Pike County, Mississippi. From Pike County, Mississippi to parts of Louisiana.
Mae Wall and her family escaped from slavery in 1963. 1963. At the time, they were unaware that slavery had ended.
When I think about 1963, that's the year I graduated high school from Landry. But these people were still in slavery.
Incidents of peonage were reported in 16 states throughout America in the 20th century.
It wasn't no saying that you wasn't going to go to the cotton field or to whatever field that you had to go to, because you was going, dead or alive. So it didn't matter if you thought you didn't want to go, because you was going anyway.
So that's the question here. When did slavery end? Who kept slavery in the 20th century a secret?
This is to call your attention to the alleged peonage now existing in the flood relief camps at Vicksburg, Yazoo City, and other points in Mississippi. These people are herded into camps of 5,000 or more, and soldiers from the National Guard are used to let none out of these camps and to keep people from the outside from coming in and talking with them. And it is said that this condition of non-communication is to continue until the waters subside, and these free people can be herded back to the plantations. It is also said that the planters hold their labor at the point of a gun for fear that they would get away and not return. While the Red Cross is doing much, it is by no means without criticism. One of its great mistakes is that it tries to run things without spending money. Under such circumstances, the value of money must necessarily pale into insignificance.
When we're talking about slavery, everybody that was around was living the same kind of life that we was living. So I never knew that slavery was over.
Miss Miller, we got to be talking about some part of India or Africa or something. Surely, 1963, this couldn't happen in America.
If we can visualize slavery from the beginning of slavery, and we look at the same system that put us in slavery, how is it that we should have any doubt? Because it is not in the history books, because many people refuse to look. How many of us went back into those rural areas to see if everybody left off these plantations at one time? Did we ask any questions? Where did they go? Who would they go to?
As I got older, I learned the daddy may be the sheriff when you couldn't talk to nobody, no, everybody was in the same condition. The grandpa might be the judge. The son may be the DA.
So when someone come to me and say, I didn't get my freedom until 1965, I believe them because I've seen the index at the National Archives that said peonage cases to 1973.
I'm here at the National Archives located in Washington, D.C. in College Park. What you're looking at in these boxes here, these are what you call the peonage files. Many of these files was filed by the NAACP to the Department of Justice. So each one of these boxes would represent different states. There was 13 states that I filed peonage.
I want to call your attention to a part of the USA that has between 300 to 500 Negroes bound in slavery, according to information I received from a colored woman that escaped there Tuesday. She said that the boss man slapped her and she tried to resist him, and he hit her with a blackjack and broke her arm in 5 places, and it had to be taken off. It is off smooth to the shoulder. And this man is called Captain Boss. He has a big house with about 10 big fat Negro men that do not work, just stay in this big house. The boss man makes the women go there and stay with these men 3 days, whether they want to or not. This man handles these people like they are cattle or hogs. This boss man mates these Negroes just like a farmer does his animals.
And in some counties and parishes, the sheriff, the constable, all of them worked together. So they had no outlet to talk to anyone about peonage.
You remember me telling you that my father tried to run away?
Yes.
And he ran through the woods, and when he ran up on the highway, he ran into some white people's in a buggy or a truck or something, and he had been beat. And he said, I got to get away. They said, boy, where are you going? He said, I don't know. I got a wife and children back there, but I've had all I can take. So I got to go somewhere.
He was going to leave the family because it was too much.
It was too much.
A man who loved his wife, a man who loved his children, who would die for his children, he was willing to leave his family.
He was willing to leave his family. He said that the white men told him, boy, I know somewhere we're going to take you. We're going to take you and enroll you in Uncle Sam's army. And my father said he was so relieved. They put him in that back of that wagon or whatever they had, laid him down. He said, and when he arose, he thought they had him where they had carried him, supposed to be after he run to help him get away. And he rode back on the plantation.
Did they beat him?
They beat him and beat him some more. They brought him back to the plantation, said, here this boy here. He was trying to run away.
I am handing you a letter from a darky, which is rather difficult to read, but which refers to the forced detention of a family on the plantation of Mr. Sel Jones, at or near Shockey, Mississippi. I will state that within the past month, at least 5 Negroes have been to me with pitiful tales as to the way they have been beaten up, leaving their families on this place. It looks as if peonage was practiced on this place to quite an extent, and if your department could make an investigation, I believe you would unearth a bad condition there. Earl Brewer, Governor.
From the early 1900s, there were thousands of complaints of peonage to the FBI, NAACP, Justice Department, local sheriffs, attorney generals, and 5 presidents. Hundreds of thousands of reports were filed cataloging a range of abuses throughout the southern United States.
Another nice little case of peonage down here at Sebastopol, in the form of a 16-year-old half-white Negro boy, an orphan out of Vicksburg, who, seeking employment, fell into the hands of Mr. Nick Lang and his boys. 3 times this boy has run away from him, seeking to become free, but is pursued and captured and overtaken wherever he may go. This unfortunate boy tells us that he has been several times beaten by one of the Langs with his clothes taken off. Now, gentlemen, if a man comes down spreading his great mission to the four winds, the facts may never be known. A nest of kinfolks here will soon let you know that hell is an ice house when you seek to investigate slavery and moonshining and bootlegging. If we had one federal officer in this part of Mississippi who himself was sober and honest, a land office business would be done here capturing the bootleggers and moonshiners about Sebastopol also. If the Negro boy is taken and carried off away from them, he will relate facts to you that will make you know he is just a plain, open-door Negro slave, serving his time in bonds to a dominating master.
There was a lot of white people that wrote letters on behalf of black people that was not in agreement with some of what they saw. And they was risking their lives too. And most of the people who witnessed these things wrote on their own, and in some cases they trust that it would fall in the right hands, and in some cases it did.
In 2000, Mae Wall met genealogist Antoinette Harrell and told her story.
This woman, Mae Louise Wall, I call her Queen Harriet Tubman of my time, because she was bold enough. She wanted to be free, and she said, I gotta tell my story. But I was not surprised of her story, because I had talked to many throughout Louisiana that was afraid for their lives, so that they wouldn't talk about being held in slavery.
Even after I told the story, I seen a few people that was on the plantation with us, and they said to me, why did you tell that? They don't want to live through it. You know, they don't want to live telling their story. Say the people don't know what I've been through. I don't want them to know what I've been through.
So they're still slaves in a sense because they do not want to talk about
it.
They
do not want to talk about it. They don't want to carry their minds back there.
I met a lot of people in St. John and St. Charles Parish who worked the sugarcane plantations, but they was too afraid to talk about it. They said, no, you can't go forward with this. No, don't do that. Our lives are still in danger. Why? Because a lot of the people was like what Mae said, the sheriffs, the senators, the governors, people of that nature.
Everything reflected on me. If I had never opened up my big mouth, then they wouldn't be coming for my father.
In his mind.
In his mind. Then it renewed his mind that they were still coming back, although it was the television. It wasn't anybody coming back for him. It was the TV. He thought they was coming back for him.
The National Archives contains letters, photos, personal accounts, 6 U.S. Supreme Court cases, hundreds of federal district court cases, grand jury investigations, newspaper reports, thousands of Justice Department cases documenting murders, shootings, beatings, starvation, kidnappings, and selling of family members.
Class 50, peonage, litigation case files, 1907 to 1973. But can I put my hands on those records now? No. What is there to hide?
Peonage occurred primarily in 3 areas of Mississippi: the Deltas, the Mississippi Bluff, and the Black Belt.
The Confederacy had no respect for law. Mississippi was a pistol-packing, violent place.
When no such saying, you're gonna get tired. When no such saying, you're gonna get rested. They wanted that everlasting work. That able-bodied work. If you weren't able, if you was able, you still was able-bodied work to them.
After meeting Mae Wall and her family, Antoinette Harrell traveled the state to research peonage in Mississippi.
Oprah Winfrey, everybody knows Oprah in this country and other countries too. Slavery was taking place right in her hometown, Kosciuszko, Mississippi. The records only go back to 1984. The rest of the records was in an attic where the birds, the silverfish, the pigeons was making their nests. Darkness was really consuming the records.
I just learned that some of the books in the schoolhouse has been burned. That's a major concern, because when the books are not preserved, we cannot learn about our ancestors, where they came from, who owned it, how much they were sold for. That's very important information.
So all through there, I found a system that was feeding another system, the constable.
We are in receipt of a letter charging peonage practices in Attala County, Mississippi. The letter names a justice of the peace at Kosciuszko and the constable Jeff Thurwell as being in a conspiracy to arrest colored as well as white people on trumped-up charges. Fines imposed, it is alleged, being paid by a sawmill and logging camp at Zama, also in Attala County, which holds the prisoners indefinitely.
In Kosciuszko, the constable Jeff Thurwell took many captives, imposing heavy fines, which made it impossible for them to post bail. Thurwell would call his business partners to come and buy out prisoners. The men were held indebted to the company in exchange for forced labor.
Well, he was really just making up charges and charging men, black and white alike, or anyone else he can get his hands on, to feed them to a system over in Clarksdale, Mississippi, to work the cotton fields.
Clarksdale was the home for large cotton plantations and wealthy planters. Many of the workers captured by Constable Thurwell in Kosciuszko were shipped to Clarksdale to work the cotton fields.
And now we must keep in mind that these places are very isolated places. When I drive down these country roads, 10 miles off the main highway, it's a long 10 miles. There was nowhere to go.
Where were you gonna go to? All you seen was the cotton field and the little old shed you was in.
So it's acres of cotton? Was it a large?
It was cotton, 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 and cotton, no end to cotton.
And as you can see, as far as the eyes can behold, there's nothing but rows of cotton. This is why the market for selling people into slavery in the 20th century was so important, because number one, they didn't have machines at this time like the ones that you see now.
I know something of the conditions that did exist in the Delta country during the years 1921 to 1922. I met a condition there that I did not think existed anywhere in the United States. The Negro sharecropper, in my opinion and observation, was just as much in bondage as they were before the war between the states. I was sitting in the mayor's office one morning in Greenwood, Mississippi, when a man marched a trembling Negro in. "Mayor, I want you to send this Negro to the penitentiary. He was running away." Then the Negro put up a pitiful cry. He would go back home, work for the boss man for the rest of his life if he would not send him off. The boss man asked the mayor how much he would fine this Negro. The mayor said $50 in cost. "I will pay it. Go on back. If you try to run away again, I will kill you." I saw other things which convinced me they kept Negroes in slavery. I'm a Democrat. Was born and reared in North Alabama. I am no Negro lover. I think every man should have what is right and just. I know the Mississippi Delta Negroes did not get it while I was there.
In 1927, Sheriff Glass, also a doctor, attorney, and judge, helped supply slave labor to his best friend, J.W. Cottrell, a wealthy plantation owner.
I'm enclosing herewith for your inspection report of special agents of the department upon an alleged violation of Section 269 CEC, peonage. You will note that Taylor Collins and George Walker, Negroes, are now confined on the county farm in Bolivar County, serving a sentence of 1 year for violation of Section 865 Hemingway's Mississippi Code, which section has been held to be unconstitutional. You will also note the copy of the attached affidavit does not seem to charge any offense, and there is no question but that these convicts are being held on a void conviction.
And it makes me wonder sometimes just how much do people like Oprah Winfrey really know and Morgan Freeman really know about the slavery and I'm more than sure that Morgan Freeman is not surprised, because the Deltas are the Deltas. King Cotton.
The investigation conducted by the Bureau has been completed and reflects a very aggravated offense. According to the investigation, Harry H. Dugan, sheriff of Tallahatchie County, received a complaint on July 10, 1937, from a Negro, J.W. Wiggins, who came to the sheriff's office telling a story about his wife's being chained in a cabin on the J.S. Decker farm. The sheriff, with one of his deputies, proceeded to Decker's farm and upon arrival went forthwith to Decker's house. And when Decker came to the door, he had a revolver in his belt. According to the sheriff, when he entered the cabin, the Negro woman, Ethel Lee Davis, alleged common-law wife of J.W. Wiggins, was fastened by a trace chain, one end of which was looped around her neck and fastened by a padlock connected to two links of the chain. When asking Decker why he had done such a thing, Decker replied, "The sons of bitches are running away on me and I'm goddamn tired of it."
Many of Constable Thorell's prisoners from Kosciuszko were sold to work the lumber yard in Zama.
Because the sheriff there, the constable, would put them in jail, and some of the owners of the companies, like the logging company, would come and bail them out, knowing that they did not have $300, and would have them to work.
The logging company in Zama was the main industry. Zama was an isolated area with miles upon miles of timber.
And as I can see, it's very easy to hold somebody enslaved here because it's just lots of land for days. That's all that's here. And this is the only church that's left standing. Timber, on one hand, as far as your eyes can see, what would that be like trying to walk out of these areas in blistering heat? No shoes, lack of food. It was impossible.
They had the capability of
Why?
killing you, burying you alive, or whatever they felt like they wanted to do.
Why was slavery a secret in the 20th century?
It took a minute for my whole family to talk to you. Even after I told the story, they still thought we were going to be killed. But at that point, I didn't mind anymore, because my life had been a living hell. All my life, it's been a living hell. But when I walked in that door that night, down at the town hall meeting, I was tired.
Tired of what?
I was tired of the weight that I was carrying, the burden that I was carrying. Because after the 60s, we still never talked about this to anybody. We didn't tell anybody.
Not even yourselves?
Not even ourselves. Because so much had happened, and we had been beat so much, and had been threatened so many times, that you really didn't know who to tell.
Deep in the bowels of America's richest agricultural belt, hundreds of thousands of people were forced into free labor through illegal debts, intimidation, and criminal violence.
Because I found white people in slavery too. I found Jewish people in slavery too. I found Hungarians in slavery too. So when I go back in my study, I said, my goodness, what do I see here? We play one group against the other. But corporate greed had no color or respects for a person. I want your labor. I have a company to run. Greed grabbed everybody they can possibly grab.
Some of the country's most powerful companies and free market capitalists made use of the involuntary servitude of a system called worse than slavery.
So Dr. King, when he said, until there can be awareness, there could be no consensus to make correction. So now I understand his speeches beyond I Have a Dream. Because he was speaking about what he had laid eyes upon, the 20th century slavery.
I'm not surprised at all that it did end. Because really and truly, slavery is really not ended yet. It just eased up a little bit and rephrased it.
Many of the American companies that profited from slave labor still exist today and have never repaid their debt to the many they enslaved.
What would those companies and corporations owe to the American people today if the truth of their books was exposed?
The only good pillow that we ever had was my father. He would stretch out his 7 children and his wife were there. He had 8 people laying on him for a pillow. Even though he might be half to death. Blood might be running from his head to his foot. We have seen his head split wide open. But still, he would lay there and make that pillow for us to keep our faces out of that dirt and out of that straw. He was our hero. He was the greatest man I ever known.
A country that many of us believe is the land of the free and land of opportunities. But at whose expense?
You know, what kind of demons they had in them to make them do that, I really don't know. But they did it. If you witness any of these treatments that I've been through, come forward. There's somebody you can talk about now. Everybody's not family anymore. You can feel free to talk. You might get some help if you're willing to put your life on the line.